Welcome to the Modern Latino Podcast with your hosts, Gene and Ivan. Mr. Ivan, ¿cómo le va?
What's up? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good.
I see you excited for a game this weekend.
Oh, I got my Bills jersey on. Rio, New York team, right?
Yes. you know I'm a Giants fan, but I have
have a jersey.
I have dabbled and crossed into the other blue team.
You have a jersey. I know you do.
Hey, you know what? At least it's the same colors, so I'm okay with it. No, I'm excited. I want the Bills to succeed. I've been, ever since hanging with you, I've become a Bills fan. So yeah, they're my backup team. I mean, I'm Giants all the way, but Bills is still from New York.
They're the only one.
That's what people say.
Giants and Jets, they play in Jersey.
Bills Mafia, go.
That's it.
So thank you for joining us. This is the Modern Latino Podcast. We're a New York City podcast dedicated to celebrating the modern Latino experience. We focus on highlighting individuals and organizations that are making a difference in their communities, having a positive impact, and at the same time, challenging stereotypes and showcasing the incredible potential that all of us Latinos have. And today we have a very, very special guest joining us. We have Leslie Arredondo-Cordero joining. And Leslie is a super highly experienced music strategy expert. And her specialty is in using music for short form content and brands. She's spent a ton of time working at big companies like Paramount and most recently TikTok. And so in addition to having that kind of corporate experience, she's also worked with some entrepreneurial endeavors as well. And so this is a really great episode. If you like music, if you like the music entertainment business, this is the episode for you. Even if you're just thinking about it, this might be her experience might shed some light on you on some careers that you didn't even know existed. And so I think this is a really important episode. And so I hope that our fans like it. Now, we do have to just point one thing out. This video element to our podcasts is somewhat new. And so someone who's wearing a Bills jersey
here we go.
forgot to hit the record button at the right time. And fans,
it wasn't that I forgot. It was just technical difficulties.
Fans, we always try to keep it real. We started this podcast during the pandemic, and we taught ourselves everything that we've done so far. And so in this case, someone had technical difficulty. And so we actually start our interview and our conversation with Leslie. And what you're going to see when we transition to the interview is Leslie answering the question that we asked her about explaining her background and essentially setting up her career journey. So that's where the interview picks up. And trust me, you're going to want to hear the rest of it because she is probably one of the most knowledgeable people that I've ever spoken to. And I've actually had some experience in the music business. She knows her stuff and she's just so awesome. Yeah. We're really lucky to have her join us.
Yeah. And it won't happen again. I promise.
I hope not.
All right.
So tune in.
All right. I'm going to just ask you the same thing.
Okay.
The good thing was he saved himself from the Brooklyn question.
Yes, which is that's a big one. I'm still on the fence about it, but
on that one. Oh. All right, no, I agree. Like I told you, I saved myself when I said I'm from Queens.
Mm-hmm. So my career has been basically in the music for content space. And anytime you have an intellectual property, right, and music being an intellectual property in a piece of content, you need rights granted. You need a license. You need some type of negotiation. It could be a direct license, where you're going directly to music rights holder, music label, publishers to acquire those rights, or it could be via the platform that you're using, right? And that's more likely nowadays because we have so many platforms, and the platforms are the ones that pre-negotiate sometimes these huge deals with labels and publishers that allow for certain uses, right? And there's still some uses out of that scope. But basically, that process, it's a whole industry, right? And there's also like a back end, a front end and a back end, the front end being the creative side of the music sync world. And that is, music supervisors, music composers, and folks that somebody like me would work with to get that content get that music onto whatever content I'm, representing. And then, the back end too, there's the whole operational side. There's systems that we use. There's, processing approvals a certain way and processing payments a certain way. So it is a pretty stretched out sector of the music industry that a lot of times is overlooked. And it's had a little bit of a popularity heyday in the past 2 years, ever since Stranger Things and the syncs that they did got so much press that it brought this new life into the music sync world. But it's been what I've been doing for the past 2 decades. It's something that I love. I always loved music, but particularly music in film. I love soundtracks since I was very, very young. I love to listen to the music that's in the films, the scores. I have my favorite, composers, John Williams. I grew up on John Williams
Of course.
films.
Yeah.
So, I watch documentaries on music and how they make music and all about music and everything. So it's really just we're just a bunch of music nerds that work together, and it's a great community. It really is. We have a lot of folks, most in LA, right? And a lot of them in New York too. And actually, we had a benefit yesterday for LA, the New York Sync community.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
So we're a really tight group of people. At some point have all worked together or been clients or something.
yeah, it's really funny because I didn't know I didn't know how tight that circle was. And to be honest, I'm glad you're talking about this because there's so many people who are interested in music. I'm sure a lot of our audience likes music, and they may not even have known that that is a career that you can
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And I remember I only learned, I mean, not recently, but I learned about like music supervisors for TV shows. I don't know, 20 years ago, whatever, when I was watching a show and I heard this song and I loved it, but this was before Shazam or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find it anywhere. And so I was just like, how can I find out about this song? And then I looked at the credits and it said like music supervisor.
Hmm.
And I happened to find that person online.
Oh, wow.
And sure enough, like
Resilient.
I emailed them and they sent me the track. And I was just
Oh,
like,
wow.
oh my God, this is so
Oh,
cool. I
yeah.
didn't even know that was a thing.
Because
And
placing music in anywhere, placing and securing, right? Because there's somebody now. You could do both. You could do hybrid placing and securing, but some entities have where like they have creative people placing and then a whole team that licenses. Getting music that you love into a piece of content is like that is our prize. It's our daily prize.
All right.
Closing the deal is our daily prize. So I am not surprised that a music supervisor actually read your email and probably very excitedly sent you the song.
Wow.
I was
No, 'cause-
surprised. Yeah.
yeah, because
Yeah.
that's exactly how this community is. We're just a bunch of super fans,
Yeah.
and
I mean,
we're
but
like sit there.
is that because again, I'm trying to understand. So, say for instance, you're a huge music fan, and you are part of that industry in the filmmaking and know a little bit about it, or you want to get your music into this particular area. So, would you go out there and try to promote it to that person, or is it that the person that's actually putting it together is looking for ideas and reaching out to people?
Yeah, you read my mind. I was gonna say, which comes
It's
first, the chicken
both.
or the egg?
Yeah.
It's both. It's both. And it's neither. Neither comes first. It's just whatever is, the opportunity comes. There are, music is usually represented. Sometimes it's self-represented and sometimes it's represented by a label or publisher, right? And just I think for the audience also like breaking down, right? So the label is the recording, right? The master rights, and then the publishing is the composition. It's the song, is the IP, the actual IP. And those writers, right? And it could be writers, composers, etc., like who participates in the, building of that particular composition, they will always have a share of that music. Always. It can be recorded
Hmm.
by 10, 20, 30 different artists. It could be performed by anybody. But the IP part, the publishing part, that will always stay with the writers.
Mm.
Even if somebody uses a portion of their song, they will always get the credit and get whatever revenue is coming to them, whether it's a revenue that's, they're all legally obliged, obviously, but some revenues, like, for example, performance rights organizations, that's something that comes along with use, and rates are established by law. Or if they do buyouts, those writers will always get their share because that is the valuable part, the IP,
Mm.
right? It's valuable to the writers, it's valuable to whatever artists decide to record it or perform it or make it part of their brand.
Got it.
So music is represented, and it's something that's constantly happening, right? Music creators will start, nowadays, I would say if somebody is creating music and they want to get it out there, they definitely have to put it on social, right? They have to
Yeah.
put it on all the platforms. Get it into some commercial space on the platforms. TikTok has a commercial music library that's amazing that all the brands can use. That's a great space to get it in. Make those relationships with the distributors. Or there's also, music libraries that they can make relationships with. Try to get their music into the music libraries also,
Mhm.
because that'll open up their world to be able to be placed into some of the content. And there's so much different type of content. People usually think music sync and they're like, oh, the music that's in the big films. And yes, that's part of it, but that's really a smaller part of it, right? It's the
Mhm.
one with the big bucks, and it's the one that gets all of the popularity, and it is the goal. It is the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
But big, like, there's a big world behind that,
Mhm.
right? There's so many studios that create only for television, now studios that create only for YouTube, that create only for TikTok. So, and then there's influencers, the influencer community and the content they're creating. That's a whole other world of licensing that sometimes is covered by the bigger deals with the platforms that I mentioned, and sometimes it's not. And so now there's ecosphere where, getting the rights for creators is also part of, it's like another layer in the business. And I really saw that exploding at TikTok.
Mm.
My time that I spent at TikTok, I really saw what an impact that was having. So,
Uh,
and a lot of opportunity for independent artists, especially.
Now I'm glad you mentioned TikTok because I feel like that is obviously right now, like that is the place to be. But I did want to talk I was hoping you could walk us through your career journey because I feel like over the last 20 years, 20 plus years, the music scene has like transformed
Oh
more
yeah.
than most because like I'm thinking like Napster and all that
Oh my
stuff.
God. Remember
Yeah.
Napster?
Yeah,
Yeah.
remember like
LimeWire?
Napster,
Remember LimeWire?
Oh yeah.
LimeWire, and then obviously the introduction of iTunes transformed how artists were getting paid and that whole scene. Like, can you talk us through like your career journey, like and how you
Yeah,
ultimately
absolutely. So
ended
this is
there?
a very Zennial conversation, right? Because we are that group that has been through all the technological
Yeah.
changes, and we
Mhm.
thrive on change. We can deal with it like straight shooters. So yes, it has changed so much in this lifetime, and being able to see that and then be part of that, and it really has been very rewarding. I was one of those people that was always just in love with music on a very deep level, and a level that I didn't feel my friends at the time really understood. They love music and they love, what was great on the radio. And you're from Brooklyn, you're repping Biggie and everything,
Yes.
and and I did too, and went to clubs and whatever and house parties, but I was one that would take music and really break it apart. I break it apart in my head. I'd break it apart like soul wise, and I'd just like sit there and listen to it over and over again because I wanted to either hear the different instrumentals, hear the different sections of the music, really pay attention to the lyrics, know the story about the artist, why they wrote this, who wrote this, did somebody else, like all these things. Like I was just kind of just got carried away, right? That was my rabbit hole. Right. So
Mhm.
nowadays it's like everyone TikTok or whatever's around. That was my rabbit hole. And I was like that constantly. And I can remember being 6 years old or something, and watching ET and just being so moved by the music
Mhm.
and crying, not like the other kids were crying because they missed ET. I was crying because I felt the music.
Yeah.
I felt the impact of it. And I would watch it again and cry again because and it's still something that I have to fight sometimes when there's such impacting music. I have to fight that emotional part, like to keep it down around other people because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna start crying, right? Um, but it's all because of the beauty of it. Anyway, growing up, I don't play any instruments, right? But I was always interested. I would like sing in plays, and then my voice, puberty came and I didn't have the voice for it. And when I went into college, I had multiple majors, but one thing that was always constant, I was always involved with the music, like teen music clubs, the radio station in college. Like I always found my way to music. I had 3 or 4 different majors, but I was always involved with the music side. And there was no music business class back then, or music business,
Really?
Yeah.
major. That didn't
You wait,
exist.
and you went to Baruch, right? I mean, they have
I
a
went to
decent, like
Baruch,
a
yeah.
pretty great business school.
Amazing business school. But they're WBMB radio was like the place to be. Like that station, it just opened like my world got so much bigger. And while I was going there, I had also I interned at J Records, like towards the end of, the like last semester, and I was able to bring in like some of the execs in, talk to students, help them organize panels. And so I started getting more into the music side. And ended up from J Records moving on to, which was BMG at the time. The merger happened, and there was this wonderful HR woman she was the best. She was like, there's a position opening on the Sony side. It's to someone who speaks fluent Spanish, and they want you to read and write, and it's in the copyright department. And this is like intellectual property
Yeah.
101, right? It is, and back then it was like paperwork, like going through mechanical licenses one by one. And, at first it seemed like, oh God, this is such like paper push work. But for me, it was very exciting because I got to learn about different writers, different Latin writers, because work on the Latin side. So I was like, oh, who's Mario Dom and these other, writers that were like so big, part of groups that I didn't real like, I knew about Marco Antonio Solis, right, the Los Bukis, but I was like, oh, this is music that he wrote before he was even a Buki. And, all these other writers, Leodan and, very iconic writers from those times. And I would run into like a Fania, license or something. And it became very exciting. And I learned so much about the different writers and how the labels work with the publishers. And then we used to have DVDs, like DVD, programming that they would, the concerts, like Shakira concert or something. And that's considered sync, right? So there's the mechanical side, which is licensing for sales of the music, right? And at that time it was DVD that they were selling. But then, yeah, it was CDs. And then there was the sync side, and it was all the live DVDs or like whatever programming the artists were doing. And so I started licensing music there, right? When we didn't have like, we had the Sony side master,
Yeah.
I would go and license like the publishing. And that's what led me then to MTV. That at the time it was MTV Networks, right? It's changed names like 4 times, so I don't know what to call it sometimes. But at the time it was MTV Networks, and it was like the home entertainment department, again, DVDs. And I started working there. We would like re-clear music because they put a lot of music in the shows back then, popular music, and that was only for a temporary amount of time because pricing for music is very high when you're looking at, a perpetuity terms. It means like you're looking to keep in there forever, right? So then they would kind of rescore the music and just keep like very essential songs. So we had to go out and license those rights for the DVDs. And then I left. I actually left and I went to work in the first US based reggaeton label.
Really?
Yes, it was called UBO, Urban Box Office. Our offices were downtown. Reggaeton Latino was their song, right? They had Plan B before anybody else. So Chencho was with them, and this other woman that used to be part of Plan B. I don't remember her name, but she was amazing. Anyway, they had a few hits here and there, and that was like one of those, it was crazy. It was crazy because it was like not so professional. There was a lot of
Startup, grassroots.
there was a lot of behavior that would not be tolerated now. Well, maybe nowadays going forward, but not in the past 20 years, right? I don't know about tomorrow. It might be tolerated, but the past few years it wouldn't be. So.
Yeah.
I could just imagine.
I know. I'm not so, but it was fun. It was so much fun, and it was a lot of New Yorkers, right? So especially like the women, like we were like New York women, like we're just used to like not taking shit, whatever. And it's like very New York vibe. A lot of really talented people that went through there, that now work at the major labels and stuff or have their own labels. So that was quite an experience. And then it ended, not even a year later. But then I started working so I was hired there to basically do like business affairs administration to like go like the contracting for the studios and stuff. and open up their licensing side. So they're publishing all the sync stuff, right? So I started doing sync. We got like a song in Zumba. We got a song in like I remember one of like the cop shows and stuff. It was really, really cool. And I worked with the lawyer that was in Miami, this amazing lawyer. His name is Leslie Ziegel. And after the label went under, he kind of took me under his wing and was like, just continue working with me, and we're gonna, hash out all these contracts, whatever. And then I worked with him for a while. I learned a lot from him, just about how the industry works and stuff, especially on the Latin side. And then I ended up going back to MTV, and that was the longevity of my career, right? To spend another 15 years there, and I got to work on marketing content. So, artist promotional content, 5252, which was like a once a week rotation of new artists, and it included like Bruno Mars and Paramore and all these
Wow.
iconic artists now. And
Yeah.
I got to work on their new campaign, some really creative content that was coming out of like the brand studio that they had, the brand creative teams. I mean, these guys were like, they were just like, again, music fans, and they love their job so much, and they created beautiful pieces of content that really gave music a new life. And this is when MTV was like going more into programming. So
Yeah.
this became the music identity. And it was amazing, and just working with that team for so long, and again, seeing the revolving door of people that did great things there and left and did great things. And again, another very tight community too. So, in that role, I grew, and kind of got to the point where, like, I think when the pandemic happened, it changed everyone,
Yeah.
right? And so I still loved my job, but I wasn't in my job, and a lot of people had left, and there just wasn't that camaraderie anymore with the client teams, because they weren't around. Nobody was in the office. And so that kind of, made me start seeing like there's another world out there, right? And we were working a lot with Musically, right? One of like the digital team was working with them a lot. And then it became TikTok, and then the pandemic happened, and it was like, oh, this is music now. This is the new MTV.
Right.
And in 2022, I ended up going to TikTok, and honestly, I felt like I had come full circle, because going back to my love of music as a child and as a young like a teen, I used to run home to watch MTV every day. First I used to run home to watch Video Music Box before I had cable.
Right.
That's right.
3:30, right? Run home. Like everyone else was outside hanging out, I'm running home. MTV, and then there was a show on PBS on Saturdays when I should be outside, called Sounds of Brazil.
That I don't know.
Yeah, never heard of that one.
Yeah, it was like a very like public television.
Yeah.
I have to find like a clip of it and repost it or something, because like people just don't know. And so that became like my thing, like any music programming. I also used to stay up late on Thursday nights, 10 o'clock, and listen to, oh my God, I forgot the first guy's name. Stretch and Babito.
Stretch and Babito.
Yeah, Stretch and Babito.
I don't know them.
Yeah.
You don't know Stretch and Babito? Oh my
think so.
God. I'm going to
going on
revoke
with
both
us?
your cards.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I don't think I know Stretch of Babito.
Stretch and
No.
Babito. So it was this radio show. There's a whole documentary on it, right? Again, music documentaries. And it was this, it was a radio feed coming out of the Columbia University antenna, which used to be at the Empire State Building. And Stretch was, a student, right? I think he was Jewish American, and Babito, Boricua. And they got together, and they were the ones that really put hip hop on the map, because they would have all of the hip hop artists out on it. But it was from like 10 to 4. Okay, 10 in the evening to 4 on Thursdays. And so I would stay up listening to that. And I would go to school on Friday just dying. But inside I was so happy, because I knew all of this music, and I got to listen to them interview Wu-Tang Clan, and I got to see the Fushnikins and EPMD, and like Big E they did too, and Tupac, and like just everybody that was the Onyx. Like they just had like this weave,
Well,
it was like before Hot 97.
Yeah, that was like the time, I was trying to remember. I was like, why don't I know it? And I know why, because I was focused on freestyle music. I was a freestyle music head back then.
I'm not a fan, but I do idolize Lisa, and I'm really excited about her.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like the series that they have about her. I
Yes.
really am. She literally, I would always say, like, she's the original J-Lo. She's the original
Yeah, she
J-Lo because
definitely
she
is.
was, and I
Yeah.
love her. But I wasn't a fan of freestyle. Besides her, maybe like 2 or 3 songs.
That's
I
it.
don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was definitely a big time freestyle. I still am. I mean, most Puerto Rican people back then were.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
Italians were back then. It was like
No,
Puerto Ricans and Italians.
Italians, they were like the community that like catapulted freestyle, right? Because it was
Yeah, I
like,
would
and
have
they still keep it live. Oh my God, I used this case study, right? So I have this case study that I did at TikTok where I'm giving all these flowers to the African American community on the West Coast and in the South for helping catapult música mexicana, right? Everything that's out now here, the peso plumas, all them, like, no, Black people in the South and on the West Coast have to get their flowers because they are super fans, right? And
Yeah.
they expanded it beyond the Latinos. Italians did that for freestyle.
Yeah, that's definitely true. That's definitely true.
And they still have it. I just saw somebody's post like a week ago, Judy Torres at a wedding.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
Like Italians do not play around. When they
Yeah.
like something, they like
Yeah,
it.
they do.
Like they're the original super fans.
Yeah.
Okay? They don't want to hear it. You hate freestyle, Latina girl? I don't care. I love it. And that's it. You know, they would always make fun of me because I'd be like, they play freestyle. I would sit down and they're all dancing, and I'm like, I refuse. I
remember I had a friend. He was Italian, and we would drive to school together. I went to St. John's, and we would drive to St. John's together. And he had a white Mustang, and he would always blast Diamond Girl. And I was like, bro, I love the song.
Diamond Girl.
Yeah.
I was like, I love the song.
I
like,
know the
every
whole
time-
song. Even though I don't like it, I know the whole song.
Yeah, right?
There's no way that you can.
That's
With
funny.
the breath parts and everything, like, you know,
Yeah.
like the special effects.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
That was a good song though.
Yeah.
It just stuck
It
him
was
up.
a good
Yeah.
song.
Yeah,
You
it
don't have
was.
to love it, but you have to admit that it was good. And then
Oh,
there
yeah.
was a differentiation between New York freestyle and Miami freestyle,
Yes.
right? Because like Expose is very different,
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
you know, from like the New York sound and that the little cluster of artists that came out around that time from Miami, and it was, you know, it was more it started becoming more popish.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
100%.
You know?
And you're right. Like
So
it was like Expose, and even like Information Society. Like there were like some groups that did a really good job of like crossing over into that pop genre. But
yeah.
you know, I often wonder, and I know we kind of veered off the hip hop front, but like I often wonder if freestyle is still super popular with all its fans. You know, we're an aging
Yeah.
population. But like there's like Cynthia does cruises now, freestyle cruises. Like
Yes.
it's still happening. But I wonder if we had social media back then, if freestyle would have made it even like bigger. I don't know. It's something I often think about.
I think it would have. Because I know it had some type of following in Europe
Yeah.
at some point too. You
Mhm.
know, the gay community really helped bring it out
Mhm.
there.
Mhm.
I don't know what it was nationwide, and there were so many different movements around that time too. You know, like Chicago House was like, well, right before that, right, but also kind of overlapped with freestyle.
Yeah.
Um,
And I also
and
heard in Brazil it's super popular, like even today.
see, I didn't know that, and I am very like knowledgeable about Brazilian culture. I've worked with, you know, Brazilian markets in the past. I speak Portuguese, and I did not know that. So I have
Mhm.
to talk to my Brazilian counterparts and see. I know Bruno Mars is huge there, which he is here too, but you know, it's hard to break into Brazil.
Mm.
Brazil, it's its own silo, and you know, Brazilians buy Brazilian, listen to Brazilian music, watch Brazilian television. It's actually really tough. It's easier for things coming from the US side, even more so than Latin America, despite the
Wow.
geographic proximity, you
Mm.
know, and the artists that do well from Latin America tend to come from Argentina.
Okay.
Wow. I didn't know
So
that. Mhm.
yeah, it's its own little world, a very beautiful world. I will say
Yeah.
that. And the people are amazing. They are so like just loving. They're like Caribbeans,
Yeah, for sure.
you know? They're very like, oi, tudo bem. They're like touchy and stuff. They're lovely. I love Brazilians.
Now, you know, you said something that sparked a chord with me. You said like our generation had like MTV, but like today's generation has like TikTok for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Like what were like some of your best experiences while you were at TikTok?
While I was at TikTok, I would say my best experience for working with, so I worked on the commercial music side. So basically, I did all this sync stuff at Paramount, well, Viacom, Paramount. Like I said, I went through a lot of names, right? MTV, Viacom, Paramount. I worked on that for most of my career.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was hired at TikTok, and I ended up doing something completely different, right? Which is what happens when you go to tech. You just, they're like, we hired you for this because this is what we want you to do. And so I think for one, that experience of being able to expand my experience and do new things, that was extremely exciting.
Mm-hmm.
There is an entrepreneurial spirit that is at TikTok where, you know, you're kind of given the tools and allowed to thrive, you know, and sometimes there is, you know, it's a big mind shift from like going in traditional corporate where it's like, this is what you're doing and it's straight out of line and here are the tools and you have to do it this way. And that's great for like discipline, I mean, and for growth. But then when you go somewhere else and you're like, you have to get this done, you could do it however you want as long as you use these resources,
Mm-hmm.
but you got to get it done, you know, or this is what our goal is. Let's see if it even works because we don't know if it's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So those experiences as a whole were great. I really loved working with I worked with the brand teams and I got to work with brand teams in different parts of Latin America and, you know, really pay attention to like different work cultures, right? Because I've always been aware, you know, like I said, I speak fluent Spanish, always been like in Latino leadership for like DEI in the past and stuff. But and living in New York, I was very aware of the different communities and you know, the verbiage is different. What you say one way, I say it means something completely different to
Yeah.
me, right? Um, but also just like, you know, work and everyday culture is different. And so you can't come in with the same strategy working with a team in Mexico as you can with a team in Brazil. There
Yeah.
has to be some type of shift, right? Formal strategy, fine, but there is some type of shift. And people, you know, we're coming in as Americans. Like there's no Latinos in Latin America. That doesn't exist. We come here, we become Latinos. Over
Yeah.
there, we are gringos, right? When
Mm-hmm.
you're working with a team in LATAM, you are a gringo.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter. You were born here and your primary language is English. And so you got to kind of own your gringoness and go in there very humble
Of course.
and be like, I was just a gringa trying to get by.
Yeah.
um, but everybody was very welcome and learning also how important, and I knew this already, how important music is, but how effective it is with representation to the consumer, like to the viewer, to TikTok, right? Working on TikTok awards. I was able to like do licensing for the awards 2 years in a row. I worked with so many different brands, like Burger King and Subway and, you know, Doritos and would do all these presentations and pitches to brands. So, you know, I have so many experiences, but I will say that my highlight experience, and this was like something that I did on my way out, is I got to put together these educational sessions for about music for like the big ad agencies
Got it.
in Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
right? And come in and I, you know, I created a presentation based on insight. So I really learned a lot of insights and data about music. And I presented to like one of the big six. They had a custom presentation. We had a creator that came in that's one of like the top creators in Mexico, has done a lot of music activations for brands, has worked with Coke, Coke Studios, etc. And then I did another session that was they rented like a film studio and they had like the top creative decision makers from the big six ad agencies as you know, the audience, and I got to be there and like give them a whole session about the importance of music on both a creative perspective but also on an added value perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me stood out so much. Like I never I always had this thought of like, let's use data to pitch music, right? And it was kind of like, okay, yeah, you know, whatever. But now it's like a thing, right? And now we're
Mm-hmm.
here with the added value and we have this data to back it up. You know, TikTok does a really great job of that where you can go on and see the amounts of creates and you can see the engagement, the likes, the views, the creates on music. And that's amazing because you have music that is independent and may not be a commercial success, even on Spotify, but is surging on TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And it's competing with music that's in the top 10
Mm-hmm.
worldwide,
Yeah.
right? You have like that, like the Tommy Richmond song. I don't know if the one that went number one, that was in part due to the commercial library, which is the commercial library basically allows brands to use the music on the platform because when you're negotiating music use, so these licenses, the uses for UGC. But when you attach a business account, right, a brand to it, they can't use that music.
Mhm.
They're not allowed to use it because it's not considered UGC use. So TikTok they created a whole other library, and we would work on one-on-one negotiations with independent labels to get their music on there. And you know, I'll give you another highlight, and this one is so dear to my heart. I had this a partner that I've known for my whole career, and we reconnected when I was at TikTok, and he is A&R for like a very well-known Colombian label. And I got them on the commercial library. We had a few songs, and we had this one song that was by a Colombian band that was already known for a soccer trend in the YouTube days.
Mhm.
And then the other one was like an old school vallenato. It's a new song by an old school vallenato band. We put them up at the same time, and we were banking that the other song, right, the salsa song, was going to be the one to trend because they already had a history with this. We're going to put it up there, it's going to trend. And all of a sudden, the vallenato song gets picked up by Real Madrid for their championship post. Now, I'm
Oh,
in Colombia while this is happening,
Wow.
and the A&R guy's next to me. He goes, "Oh my God, we have a trend." I'm like, "No, we don't." He's like, "Yeah, look." And it's like numbers are going up and up and up and up and up and up. And it ended up being like the soccer season trend in Spanish song. And it's this like emotional vallenato song. It's
mm,
called Dile.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it's basically, it shifted the mindsets because we're like, okay, there's this music that was like very happy celebration, but celebration can also be very emotional.
oh yeah.
And so that's where they went. So then FC Barcelona picked it up. Then La Liga picked it up, like on their like overall. There, everyone started picking it up, and it ended up getting like, I mean, to this day, it probably has like 300,000 creates. It's got like 70 million views, like this whole thing, and that was very rewarding for me because I was like, okay, that's you're constantly learning. So I'm discovering a new way of using music, right? Ooh, keep
Yeah.
this in mind. But
Mhm.
then I also got to work with someone that I really admire and who for me has been like one of my mentors, and I felt like that was my way of giving back in a way,
Yeah.
Leslie,
so
I love what you just said because when you first started talking, you were talking about like the emotional connection that you felt with music, and I know I felt it as well. And you were just talking about like that connection with Real Madrid and with that song Dile. I think about other songs like "The Cup of Life." That was a Ricky Martin song they
Yeah.
used for the World
yeah,
Cup.
Yeah.
Um,
That one hit big.
that hit
that one hit
big,
big.
Yeah.
and
Definitely.
it's just amazing because I think there are those songs that if they touch an emotional chord, it really catches fire. And platforms like TikTok are enabling it. And I
Yeah.
think too most recently, Bad Bunny's new album, um,
Oh,
it was
talk about
released.
emotions.
We were
Yeah.
recording, and
Yeah.
I even said on an episode, I was like, "Bro, they just dropped the Bad Bunny
Bad Bunny, yeah.
album," and I listened to it, and I'm Puerto Rican. I mean, it just hit so many chords inside of
Yeah,
me, and literally, I start seeing it on on social media all over the place.
it's,
Just
it's
blew
all
up.
over the
Just
place.
blew up. Yeah.
It's
And
almost like even now, I'm just like, "What the heck? Like that's too much now." But
my
it's
husband said the same thing you said, and he is a fan of music, but he's not a music head like me. He's not that type, and it was so emotional to him because he is
Mhm.
Puerto Rican.
Mhm.
It's it's another layer of emotion,
Yes.
and I explained to him, like, I get emotional because I'm a music fan, and I'm going to listen to it as a music fan who loves these genres and grew up with them. I said, but you being from the island, it hits a different chord.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It hits a
Absolutely.
whole different chord. But even like my parents, because at first they were like, oh, Bad Bunny, oh, esa música, and they
Mhm.
listened to Nueva York,
Yeah.
and they came here when they were, teenagers, young adults, and they went to the boats that were like Hector Lavoe used to play, and they would go to
Mhm.
Bear Mountain and stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it brought them back to those days,
Yeah. He did
She
such a
was like, I
great
got
job.
emotional.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, he packed the music with all that stuff, but just releasing it into the ether like that, it was
Yeah.
I mean, and I didn't think of it until, pretty recent. I was like, "That's excellent marketing." I mean, it was just
Excellent marketing.
everything that he
Absolutely
did.
excellent marketing.
And I didn't realize I never thought that I would fall hard for a marketing campaign as I did. I was just like, "Holy smoke, I'm a
Oh
total
yeah.
consumer."
Yeah. You,
It was
you
And the
great.
thing
definitely
is,
did fall for it.
they put it out there and they let the users take it. And the
Yes.
Yes.
fans and the users, they just took it and they're riding with it and they keep on, and it's the conversation. And that team does such a great job of really putting that realism
Hmm.
of it and bringing you to where they are, right? And then having all these songs that are, one, culturally relevant, but then also other cultures can
Hmm.
relate to them.
Yeah,
The
100%.
missing your homeland,
Yes.
the having, the person that you love that you miss, whatever, all these different topics in the songs, the Hawaii.
Hawaii.
Yeah. And it's interesting to see who is touched by what. Like, my sister became a very big fan of the Hawaii song, and she's not really aware of like the situation with Puerto Rico and what it was with Hawaii and stuff. And now she's like going to it, right? Um, so I think the album is so diverse, but yet so interconnected at the same time. It's like just one
Yeah.
big story about
Hmm.
him and his identity as a Puerto Rican, his identity as somebody that loves their home and that had to grow and had to leave to appreciate it more.
Hmm. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it was just amazing. Like that's when I really recognized the power, because I think even that same night,
Yeah.
the same hour it came out, I made a post on our website, and I mean, it was just amazing to see the power of that. And
Yeah.
it seems like you've had the ability and the experience, to be able to like be behind the scenes to see all of this kind of stuff happening. I wanted to also ask you about like your entrepreneurial ventures. So you said, I
Yeah.
know you were talking about, and just like us, we started this podcast during the pandemic because I'm in corporate America. He was in law enforcement, and we just had time. We've been friends for a long time, and we were like, what can we
Try
do?
something,
Like,
right?
we were
Like,
like, how what
yeah.
can
Yeah.
we do? And we started podcasting. Now over 100 episodes later, this is our second podcast.
Yeah.
We taught ourselves some things, and it's kind of like it was an opportunity for us to fulfill something that we both wanted to just kind of like learn and do something, strike out. And we failed a couple of things. We learned, and
You
But
you have to you
we're
have to
still
fail
failing,
to do better.
Yeah, of
yeah.
Yeah,
course.
you have to. Failure is like, it's an option. It's not an option.
Yeah.
You will fail. You will have, you will trip. It's part of the journey, right?
Mhm.
And I learned that being in corporate. I also learned that on the independent side. So when I had left UBO and I was working with the lawyer, I started doing side gigs, right? And at the time, there really weren't that many people that were working with music in Spanish and doing it. So I was able to get a good clientele.
Mhm.
I worked on a few like reality shows and got clearance for their music. Like one of the shows on Univision, it was like a kids dance or dance performance show. I was, worked on some like albums to get like versioning of music rights. Um, and I kept doing that from time to time. And at some point when I really, well, became very ingrained at Paramount and, became busier, I stopped pursuing it, but I would still get gigs. And I went under the moniker of De Luz Music because my grandmother's name is Luz, was
Okay.
Luz. And so De Luz, right? Um, and, the last project that I did under that was, for me, for that entity that wasn't like my full-time thing. It ended up being a very important project because I got to work on a musical. I got to work on a, off-Broadway play
Oh, nice.
that was called I Like It Like That.
Oh, yeah.
And it was the basically, music from the Fania days. And, not only got to work on that project, but really got to work on the strategy side too. We ran into a few hiccups with licensing some music, and through the relationships that I've been able to, build over the, decades, I was able to help with some replacements, really get music that still was from that era and embodied the script and embodied that time. But still worked. So even though the music that they wanted, not all of it worked, right? On a legal perspective, we weren't able to get some clearances. We
Yeah.
were able to get stuff that still fit in.
Mm.
So, right there was like a testament to the type of work that I've been doing, but getting to work on that and then seeing it come to life and seeing like, music by La Lupe,
Mhm.
Tito Nieves played like the lead. There was a lot of like really well-known creative, um, folks that were part of the cast too, and the people that I've been following for years or that I've collaborated with in the past, and they're all on stage. and I'm behind the scenes, but it was like a pinnacle, right? For me, it was a lot of fun because again, what that music meant to me growing up, having my parents hear it and being growing up around Puerto Ricans, like New York, that's what you heard, right? That's what you grew
Hmm.
up on. Um, so, fast forward, I was at TikTok, and TikTok has been constantly restructures. Um, and, I saw myself in a position where I was affected by a restructure. Um, and since the day that, since my last day at TikTok, I haven't stopped working.
Mm.
So I made the decision that I'm, on a corporate sabbatical. I want to do it on my own.
Yeah.
And I built building a music agency and just call it, LAC Music. It's my initials, Leslie Arredondo-Cordero, so
Mhm.
LAC Music.
Nice.
And offer services for music and other content licensing, as well as representation for independent catalogs in Latin America for sync in the US and other territories, and then also consulting on music and the tech side. So
Wow.
it's a, multi-service
Yeah.
boutique music agency. I've been able to get a few clients, a few months in, and that's been really great and working on, new type of work that I'm familiar with or have worked on, but not in this independent sector and not for me. So
Yeah.
this is a, a new phase in my life, and I'm just, building it and learning from it constantly day by day. Um, and very grateful for the experiences I had before this because I wouldn't have done this if I hadn't been at TikTok.
Hmm.
Okay.
If I would have done it out of necessity if I had like one day got laid off from Viacom or something, which I didn't. I left on my own.
Yeah.
But being at TikTok really did um raise my self-esteem, make me more just, a little bit riskier. Like taking that risk was
Hmm.
not something that was so scary anymore because I already did it.
Hmm.
And I expanded my network and I started working in all these different facets. So I pretty much took kind of what I was doing at TikTok and now doing it on my own.
That's awesome.
Right?
Nice. Nice.
So we're growing. I have a logo finally. That's another thing. I had worked with marketing for so long that I ended up doing my own logo because I remembered all the terminology, watched a few
Hmm.
YouTube videos, and
Yeah.
created my own logo. So
That's the
That's
pink logo, right? The
yes, the
pink one.
pink logo.
Yep. Yep.
Hmm.
with the headphones, right?
With the headphones.
Yeah.
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 Yes. Yes. Yes.
We'll put
Thank
it up.
you.
We'll put it up so our fans can see it.
Thank you. Yes,
Um,
please.
yeah, and of course we will support and promote you as much as we possibly can. And it's just I think what you said is so important. You have to be able to take a risk. Sometimes you gotta try something different. In the Latino culture, a lot of the times, and I hear about it all the time. People just want to put their head down, just do their work,
Yeah.
don't want to rock the
Yeah.
boat. But if you want to
Hmm.
get ahead, you have to take a risk, and sometimes you got to roll the dice. And
Yeah.
the die, and I think that's commendable, especially. I mean, if anyone's going to do it, I would think you can do it because of your wonderful experience,
Yeah.
all the connections I'm sure you've made. I guarantee this is going to be a success for you. I know it.
Yeah. And
Um,
even though I service all types of music, like I can clear anything, but my passion really lies in Latin music, Latin content. So, that's like a focus on. It's not an only, but
mhm,
it
Yeah.
definitely is like where the heart is at.
mhm. I love it.
Uh,
I did. And are you good on time? Do you still got? We still have some more time.
Yeah, I still have a few minutes.
Cool.
yeah.
I wanted just to briefly touch on DEI because I know you spent some time in the DEI space. I feel like nowadays the political climate, DEI, a lot of folks are just like some people are negative about it, but
Yeah.
and I can understand their viewpoint, but I also know being in a corporate space, being a Latino, um, there is a place for programs that help us um, get representation, that help us kind of like
Yeah.
develop our skills. There's a big need for that, and so I was just curious, like if you could share
There
kind of like your
is.
experience in the DEI space and kind of what you've worked on.
So I was a lead for DEI while I was at Paramount, right? And it wasn't like a job. It was like what you did on the side, but it was
Hmm.
Yeah.
kind of like a second job that you weren't getting paid for. And at the time that I joined, there was a big need for representation. The numbers were so low, right? Not just of like forget about being in leadership roles, just entering
Hmm.
was so hard. It was so hard to enter into the corporate world if you were anything, if you were Latin, Black, Asian, etc. It was so hard to get in, and we had a lot more missteps because we didn't have that background of somebody telling us how to how to grow in a corporate world. I was very fortunate that being in the DI space, I connected with some Latinos who either came from backgrounds where their parents had been in corporate or had already gone through their missteps, and they are so integral in my journey. You know, they would give me solutions, troubleshooting, they would support me, they would inspire me. You know, there was a lawyer, a Mexican American lawyer, that worked with us, and I was just like, fangirl because she was, first of all, I'm Mexican in New York, so I didn't grow up with any Mexicans, right? So I'm like, oh, it's not only Latina, but she's Mexican. Like, you know, my LA folks, I always find my Mexicanness when I go to LA. I'm like, yeah, I'm Mexican, whatever. But she was just a kick ass. Like, she was, you know, SVP, and she came with a real story. Like, she didn't hide it. She's like, I became a lawyer because my brother was in and out of jail, and I wanted to know what we were reading. And I could not believe that she said that in front of all of these people. She wore that shit like nobody. And then there was another Cuban American from Miami who came from, you know, pretty, you know, well to do background. His father had been in corporate, so he was a little bit more knowledgeable.
Yeah.
And he was so happy to spread that knowledge, to give insight. He personally gave me a lot of times when I was having challenges, he would help me find solutions. And that's so important. So we built this great community. And we saw it, the numbers changing. We saw the progress. We saw there being more, you know, more entry level. And then we started seeing maybe not a huge rise in leadership, but we started seeing a little shift, you know? And I think that it was great while it was, but the issue with DEI is that it didn't evolve the way it should have. And it is very true that at some point we started having a reverse effect. Maybe not in numbers, but there were certain pockets that the message was not DEI anymore. It was like, let's get us in here and get them out. And that to me was never anything that I, you know, could be behind. So I left my DEI role in 2021. But the, you know, the journey is there. And DEI didn't only include race, though, by the way. Women, general, veterans. Veterans also DEI, right? Disabled community, right? So that's all DEI. It's all there. I think that where the shift was missed is that it was like, all right, we've made this progress here. How do we maintain that? How do we maintain this balance, and where people really are coming in for merit, but they're not losing opportunities just because they're not of the main population? So there is a need for DEI. Maybe it needs a rebranding or something. I think not having anything like that is going to be a really rough place. I think it unfortunately empowers a very small community that does not want any diversity and has a lot of power, right? And they may not be like the rest of that community, right? But they will abuse. And you know, I think right now is a really great time for community. Just community in general. Like, it might not be formal on the company side, but hey, let's help each other. Let's do this. Let's put each other on our podcast. Let's give each other a client. Let's give each other a tip. You know, let's give, you know, people some names of people you can connect with to grow your business, etc. I think we're going to see a lot of people going independent. We already see it. Right. A lot of vendors going independent. And you know, I could see, but what I also see, and this is like sneaking up, is I see platforms run by these communities, run by people of color, and being empowered. You know, there are people of color out there who are ready to or have opened up, you know, production studios, have their platforms on streaming, right? You have like Canela TV is out there, right? You have like other entities that are just like, they're making an impact and they're starting to grow. You know, you have like you know, BET still around. BET still around. They might be on their own one very soon. Who knows, right? The rumor is that they were going to sell. Maybe it's better if they sell. Maybe it's better if they go back and stand there and grow it. You know, and you have Tyler Perry too doing his thing, and you have all of these different, you know, communities kind of like, well, if, you know, I always remember Tyler Perry saying this, like, about, if you can't sit at the table, I'm going to go build the table. So I think that now is when we're going to build our tables.
See, we've actually had a discussion over here in regards to that, and Ivan and I kind of have a little bit differing opinions But you basically said it the way the way we discussed it, which was a rebranding of it now,
Your branding,
because
yeah.
I was in law enforcement, and being in law enforcement, you look at the numbers and you're like, wait a minute, and then next thing you know, you're getting the people that they're not really qualified to get in there, right? And
Exactly.
so when I was in there as a Colombian American, I really busted my butt to get to where I was, and I
Mhm.
try to learn as best as I could. And I don't come from a law enforcement family. I have a brother who's a also a cop, but we're the ones that kind of like started it,
Mhm.
got in there, but we didn't know anything about it, and we learned, and our whole aspect was, let's go in there and learn the best,
The best
or
that
as
you
much
can.
as and as much as we can, and then once we're there, you could start spreading the news, start spreading the word to all the other people that are behind us, right?
Mhm.
And as you start doing it, um, you see that you're getting jumped here and you're getting jumped there by people that they're nowhere near your knowledge base. And
Yeah.
so, that's my aspect of it. And so
Mhm.
when I speak to the corporate aspect of it in Ivan's side, it's completely different, and he brought to mind exactly what you said, which was that it no longer became a- an organization or a thought process of helping each other out because you missed out on this that somebody else already knew about. And so here, we're going to throw this information at you. We're going to support you. We're going to do this. And it became more of a, not what you know, but who you know
Exactly.
situation. And
Yeah.
so the president, just came into office, and right away with the DAI, he's, shutting it down. And when it happened, we actually had that discussion. I was like, I was all for it because I saw that there was people that were in positions that shouldn't have been there in the
Yeah.
first place. And then I saw many other people that deserved to be in those positions
Exactly.
that
Mhm.
So we don't want to go backwards.
Yeah,
correct,
exactly.
correct.
We
And
want to move
so
forwards.
exactly. And so the way you just said it, the rebranding aspect of it, I think that's exactly what needs to happen so that we
Mhm.
can put those people that belong there. And guess what? I mean, when we started this podcast, especially with the Mono Latino, we've always said that we want to start this thing so that we can support and help each other to get ahead. We don't want to
Exactly.
just get to the top and then kick the ladder from under us.
No.
We want to bring people up that ladder with us, and so on and
Mhm.
so on. And and it's very important. That's why I'm very happy to be speaking to you today, because we can, you look at somebody that has been through it all
Mhm.
and that is still continuing to fight to get even
Yeah.
further up. And so that's exactly what it is. That's our foundation here at Modern
Yeah.
Latino.
And
And
and and what you said, right? So like I had all the qualifications and I had a community and people that were able to help me navigate through that growth.
right.
And I wouldn't have grown if it wasn't for DEI. I got
Mhm.
in because I had the qualifications, despite the fact that I was Latina and the opportunity was a lot less for me. I got in.
Hmm.
But I wouldn't have grown the way I did if I didn't have people
That's
like
important.
those two people I mentioned and
Yeah.
others and so many more. Even the person who was like somebody in that department, the DI department, he was, he's a Mexican American gay man, and him and I still have an amazing friendship to this day, and he's still my mentor, my friend, and I learned so much from him and just from that whole team, from that whole experience.
Mhm.
It was something that I'm so grateful to have been a part of and been a pioneer in. Um, and I saw the change. I saw the change happen and it was necessary. And it's still necessary, but it needs to evolve.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
It
Yeah,
needs
I
to
agree.
evolve. And we also can't, it's very true about like, you can't make the other side your enemy either. Like
Exactly.
I was treated this way, so now you're going to treat that way. And I don't
Yeah.
think anybody actually says that in their
No,
head,
of course, of
that
course.
works on this, but the behavior
Yeah.
shows it.
Yeah.
So I think some of those concerns are very real, but I also think it's a big mistake to roll everything off. And also, like, I am so not for canceling like equal opportunity employment. Like
Yep.
Yeah.
that's going to set us back. That one decision, in my opinion, will set us back. The DEI, we can call it something else.
Mhm.
We
Yeah.
can figure it out. But the other one, that's the kicker.
Yep. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah.
And that's just it's something that we always have to kind of keep, fighting for and speaking up for. We can't stop, or else
Exactly.
bad things will happen. I know
Yeah.
we're almost out of time, but there's two more questions we want to ask you.
Okay,
One is, again, you've got a fantastic resume, ton of experience, and you've even got like the entrepreneurial experience. What advice would you give for someone who's listening to this podcast, who's listening to your story and wants to get into the music business because they love music? What
learn all about it. You have the internet now. Learn all about it. Learn about the communities. Join the communities. Go to join the organizations if you can. Join your school organizations. If you're in school, learn to play an instrument. Learn to produce if you can. If you can't do it because you're not technically gifted, get into those communities. Work in the college radio station. Work with whatever influencer team there is. Learn. Not just what they teach you in class. Learn. Do an internship. They're amazing. In the music space, you don't have to only go to an internship in a major label. There's so many custom music houses, etc. You talk to people, and and you got to work hard, and you got to prove yourself too. You have to be like, this is not a place where you can just like sit and enjoy it. And it's cool. It is cool, but there's a lot of very tedious work too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of strategy. There's a lot of competition, a lot, but if with, sufficient information and dedication, it can take you somewhere. And don't silo yourself either, because you think, oh, I want this career, right? You can start in music sync, but then something comes up in music business development. Be flexible.
Yeah, of course.
Because you never know what you may be better at or what might be better for you.
You're 100% right. I actually, when I was in college, I interned at MCT Bold, which was like a small management company / label, and it was Moby's. And the reason why I remember it is because I don't know if you remember, but Moby had an album called Play, and I think like every track on that was like licensed out, like, and it's been making them money for years.
Yeah.
I took the original DATs that he gave us, and I made tape copies and sent it out to different labels to see who would pick up. Who would pick it up.
Yeah, you still remember that?
I still remember that. And I have, and somewhere I have like an old like, regular, cassette tape copy of that album. The last question that we always ask our guests is, what does it mean to be a modern Latino, or in your case, Latina? What does that mean to you today?
It's to be authentic. I think that's the great thing about our time, that it's okay to be authentic, and it's okay to be, to be that 200% or more, right? Because you're American and you're Latina, but we're also like, we're New Yorkers, right? And that's a whole other culture too. That's like a very tight-knit community, and we have our own little languages. And so the authenticity is what it means to me. It means to be in a community that's known as the hardest workers too. Like, Latinas are the highest rate of college graduates, entrepreneurs, etc. Like, so they're revolutionary. And it's American. This is, we are the mainstream.
Yeah.
We're not longer, I don't think that we should think of ourselves as minority anymore. We are the mainstream. Our culture has integrated into mainstream.
That's
we are
true.
the top selling music, top ticket buyers for movies. We have the biggest economy.
Yes.
Okay, in this country. So we are the mainstream.
Boom.
Nice.
Put that on a t-shirt.
That's it.
We are the mainstream. That's it. That's our new byline.
Somos el mainstream.
Yeah. Well, there it is. There it is. You heard it here first.
I like that, right?
Just somos. That's it. Just somos.
Almost.
I love it. I love it. So if someone wants to get in touch with you, or they want to find out more about LAC Music, how can they reach out to you?
Go on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. LAC Music is on LinkedIn. I do have a website. It's not built though. It's getting built. But you can go on lac-music.com. And I think LinkedIn would be like the best place. I also have an Instagram page, which is, I ended up having to do like .l.a.c music, but it's there. So you learn more about it. It'll continue to get populated in the next few months because I'm just building everything. But look out for me.
Cool. And we'll include it in our show notes, and then we'll even include you on our our supporters page. And
Awesome. Thank you so much. I
I just
appreciate it.
I just want to say one last thing. Gene is
that?
wearing his Buffalo Bills jersey because I
Oh, don't
told
I
hate.
love it because they're
Don't
the
hate.
only team that plays in New York. I don't even like football, I'll be honest, but my
Oh,
brother-in-law, who I'm going to shamelessly plug right now, who's an influencer,
get out of
goes
here.
by Little Mo Mozzarella. He
Get out of here.
loves the Bills.
That's your brother-in-law?
That's my brother-in-law.
Get out of here.
That
How
little
you
boy that was
doing?
with, yeah, you doing? The little boy that was with him in the games, that's my nephew, Marco.
Yeah? Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. So
Nice.
we have to
I
talk after
love.
this because I didn't know that you were a Little Mo stan.
What?
I love it.
Apparently he is. I didn't tell him until now. So that's why.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. I had no idea.
That's
How
my
you doing?
brother-in-law.
I love his TikTok. I love his everything that he does. He's so funny. And not only
He's
that,
so
I'm
funny.
jealous. See, now I'm really jealous because like the recent content that he's put up, it's all up there in Buffalo, during the
Yeah.
practices with all the
No, and
players.
you're celebrating right now, right? You're
Yeah.
celebrating.
I mean,
For you.
listen, I'm telling you, I mean, I'm so, the reason I'm wearing this jersey, I had no idea, is because obviously this weekend is the AFC Championship.
Yeah.
And I was so jealous because I just saw a video that he posted with him with Deion Dawkins
Yeah.
and Josh Allen. And I'm like, come on, man, really?
Little
But,
Mo.
but what I love about Mo is that he explains, because he always gets a lot of hell from New York, right? The real New York,
Mhm.
which I totally agree with him. Jets, Giants, they play in Jersey. They're Giants. They're Jersey team.
Yeah.
Buffalo's the only real New York team, and so he gets so much hell, But
I
God
know.
bless him because he
Thank you.
supports the teams. God bless you because
Thank
go
you.
Bills. I mean, I had no idea. I'm over here talking to somebody that is.
I know nothing about the Bills, but I know a little Mo.
But it's a New York team.
That's my claim to fame.
Even though it's up there.
Nice.
Well, we got to get him on here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Try to
Thanks,
make him happen.
Leslie.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great evening, and I really appreciate you having me on, and onwards.
Yes,
for sure.
absolutely.
We'll continue to stay in touch. If there's anything that we can do to support you, let us know. And yeah, we'll be in touch, and we wish you nothing but the best with LAC Music.
Same here.
That's
Much
it.
luck with this podcast. I can't wait to see it growing.
Yes, thank you, Leslie. I really appreciate you coming here, and all the best to you.
Bueno, saludos. Ciao.
That was really cool. I had a good
It really
time.
was.
She knows her stuff.
Yes. I had no idea, man. I had no idea. I always say this. After every interview I'm always like, I had no idea. But I had no idea that there was a position like that.
I know.
Like in the music industry, and content. What is it? Content
Strategy placement.
strategy and branding, right? So
Yeah.
it's she has so much knowledge into it, and
well, the other thing is we only have like a short amount of time with her, and music in this kind of like space, there's so much.
Yeah.
Like she mentioned John Williams. I'm a big John Williams fan. You know who that is, right? The composer for like Raiders of the Lost Ark, Star Wars, like all those kind of like big movie scores and stuff like that. Then she was talking about like the TikTok. Like I have so many questions, especially as we got our own podcast. Like it's just there's just not enough time to go over.
Yeah, I
everything,
mean, like
and she just knows so much.
One of the things that she spoke about, which is so true. Like if you go into the movies and you're watching a movie, you really don't get the feeling for the movie unless you hear the music.
Yes.
Like I've always told my wife, she always, and I think you've actually said this to me too. Why do you have the music so loud? Why do you have the TV so loud? Because it actually makes you emotional. Like you really want to feel what's going on in the movie, and the music is what makes it for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or for anybody. And I had no idea that there's so much into getting a track or whatever into a movie, and or vice versa. So that was cool. That was cool to learn that.
Yeah, no, I think I wish her all the best, and I think we're super duper lucky that we were able to get her to join us.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll stay in touch with her, and then maybe we can
Well, especially now that I know that she's related to Lil Mo.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe we get you like an intro. So fans, thank you for listening to the show. We hope you had a good time. If you want to find more information about us, you can find us on social media and on the web. So our website is themodernlatino.com. We're on Instagram at the Modern Latino Podcast. We're on YouTube at the Modern Latino Podcast. We're on X, formerly Twitter, at Modern Latino Pod. And then, of course, if you want to support the show, and we hope you do, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/themodernlatino. All this information is on our Instagram page, on our website, and our show notes. And the last thing I'd like to ask is, if you've been listening to the show and you like it, please subscribe to us on YouTube, but also leave us a review, whether you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on iHeart. Those are things that matter to us. Please feel free to give us critical feedback. Or if you love the show, just let us know. If you want to be a guest, you know someone who would be a good guest, just reach out to us. And we hope that you enjoy what we've got. We've got more awesome guests like Leslie coming up.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to what comes next.
Thanks a lot, everyone, for listening to us, for joining us. I mean, it really does mean a lot to us. And I just have a great time doing this all the time.
Yeah, same here.
It really does. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a great night. Enjoy yourself. Go Bills. I had to say it again. Go Bills. AFC Championship. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you very much.
Take care.